You know those homeless people you pretend not to see on street corners? The ones you avoid eye contact with, as if they were ghosts? I used to be one of them. My name was Robert Bobby Mitchell, and for 5 years, I was completely invisible to the world. But that invisibility would become my greatest weapon. It wasn't always like that. There was a time when I had everything a man could want. A modest but cozy home in the suburbs of Portland, Oregon. A beautiful wife named Linda, who used to smile every time I walked through the door after work. 2 wonderful kids, Tyler, 8, who was obsessed with cars just like his dad, and Sophie, who called me Hero Daddy every time I fixed one of her broken toys. I worked as a mechanic at Mitchell & Sons. Ironically, I never had a son to carry on the family business. My dad left me that small shop when he died, and I ran it with pride. We weren't rich, but we were happy. Linda worked part-time at a department store in the mall, more to stay busy than out of necessity. Our evenings were filled with family dinners, homework time, and movies on the couch. All of that changed on a Tuesday in March of 2015. The doorbell rang at 3 a.m. and woke me up. When I opened the door, 2 police officers were standing on the porch with that expression no husband or father ever wants to see. "Mr. Mitchell," said the older officer as he removed his hat, "we regret to inform you that your wife Linda and your children Tyler and Sophie were involved in a fatal accident on Interstate 84. The vehicle skidded in the rain and plunged into the Columbia River. Due to the strong current and weather conditions, the bodies were not recovered." My world collapsed in that instant. I literally felt my chest tear open and my heart hit the floor. The officer's words echoed like they were coming from far away. Accident, fatal, bodies not recovered. What do you mean not recovered? How could it be that my family had just vanished? The following days were a blur. A funeral with no bodies, empty caskets, people telling me they were in a better place now, as if that made any difference. Linda was only 34. Tyler had just learned to ride a bike without training wheels. Sophie still left little drawings under my pillow. The investigation was over far too quickly. Heavy rain, slippery road, common accident in that area. The insurance paid out almost immediately, something that should have seemed suspicious, but I was too deep in grief to question anything. The car was declared lost in the river, along with my family. I spiraled for months. First came the occasional drink to numb the pain. Then it became daily, then constant. I stopped going to the shop. How could I fix other people's stuff when my own life was completely shattered? Customers stopped coming, bills piled up. Within 6 months, the bank foreclosed on my house. I sold everything of value to buy more booze. Friends tried to help at first, but who can deal with a man who cries for hours talking to ghosts? Within a year, I was living under the Burnside Bridge in downtown Portland. I had become exactly what people pretend not to see: a homeless, broken alcoholic. I scavenged for cans during the day, begged for change to buy cheap liquor, and slept on cardboard when I could find some that was dry. People looked at me with either disgust or pity, when they looked at me at all. To most, I was invisible, just another loser who couldn't handle life's tragedies, a human waste. And for 4 years, I believed they were right. But in October 2022, 7 years after that awful night, something impossible happened. Something that would change everything and make me realize that sometimes invisibility is the greatest power someone can have. I was collecting cans near Clackamas Town Center, a mall on the south side of Portland, when I saw her. A woman stepping out of a black BMW, accompanied by 2 kids. My heart stopped for a full second. It was Linda, older, with platinum blonde hair instead of her natural brunette, wearing expensive clothes I could never afford. but it was her. And the kids. Tyler, clearly now a 15-year-old teenager, tall and slim. Sophie, 13, with that same shy smile I remembered. My family, alive, walking through that parking lot like nothing had ever happened. In that moment, as I watched them enter the mall, only one question kept pounding in my head. If they were alive, who had died in that car 5 years ago?
For 3 days, I thought I was hallucinating from the alcohol. After all, after 5 years of nearly non-stop drinking, it was possible my brain was playing a cruel trick on me. But I had to be sure. I went back to the mall the next day, and the day after that, and there she was again. Linda, with the kids, shopping like any regular mom. But something had changed besides her appearance. She was more elegant, more confident, wearing expensive jewelry and carrying designer bags. I started following them. As a homeless man, I was practically invisible. People looked right through me like I wasn't there. That invisibility, once a curse, had become my advantage. I found out where they lived, a mansion in West Hills, one of Portland's most upscale neighborhoods. The address was 2847 Skyline Boulevard, a house easily worth over $1 million with a view of the entire city, manicured gardens, 3 cars in the driveway, the black BMW, a white Mercedes, and a red Porsche. For weeks, I observed their routine. Linda dropped the kids off at a private school in the morning, went to Pilates, had lunch with friends at fancy restaurants. In the afternoon, she picked up Tyler and Sophie, who now went by, and this broke me, Tyler and Sophie Moreau. They had changed their last name. And then I met the man living the life that was supposed to be mine, Vincent Moreau. A man around 50, gray hair, always well-dressed, driving luxury cars. He sounded French from the accent I caught a few times. A successful businessman from what I could tell. I spent hours watching the family through the house windows. Seeing my children playing in the yard, grown, changed, unaware that their father was outside, hiding in the bushes like a criminal, was one of the most painful things I've ever experienced. They looked happy. That was the part that tore me up the most. As a homeless man, I had access to places normal people didn't. I could rummage through trash without raising suspicion. I could stand on street corners for hours watching. I could enter public places where the homeless often sought warmth or food. That's how I started piecing together the puzzle. First, I discovered Linda now went by Lisa Moreau. I found documents in the trash, bills, mail, invitations to social events. She claimed to be a widow, saying the kids were Vincent's stepchildren from a previous marriage that had ended tragically. Vincent Moreau owns several important export companies: Moreau International Trading, Moreau Logistics, Moreau Investment Group, companies that supposedly dealt with goods coming from Europe and Asia. A lot of money moving around, far more than any legitimate import business would justify. I began watching his offices. The main one was in downtown Portland, a fancy building on S.W. Morrison Street. Suspicious men coming and going at odd hours, late-night meetings, cars with out-of-state plates. One night, while rummaging through the office trash, an act no one questions when you look like a homeless man searching for food, I found partially burned documents. Fake invoices, shipping records that didn't match official manifests, contact names in countries known for arms trafficking. Vincent Moreau wasn't just a successful businessman, he was an international criminal. But how had Linda gotten involved with him? And more importantly, how had she faked her own death and the deaths of my children? It took me months to find out. Watching, eavesdropping, gathering scraps of information like an invisible private investigator. And when the truth finally came together, it was even more devastating than I had imagined. Linda met Vincent in 2014 when he was a customer at the store where she worked. He was in the country on business, and she helped him several times. Vincent was charming, wealthy, and offered a life I could never give her. A life of luxury, international travel, endless money. Their plan was meticulously crafted. Vincent had contacts who could forge documents, create fake identities, make people disappear officially. The accident was staged. They used a car similar to ours with cloned plates, filled it with weights, and dumped it in the river on a stormy night. The strong current and bad weather made it impossible to recover the bodies.
While I wept at a funeral with empty caskets, Linda and my children were hiding in Canada, waiting for the dust to settle. Vincent handled everything: fake passports, forged death certificates, even bribing local officials to speed up the case closure. After 2 years in Canada, they returned to the United States with completely new identities. Lisa Moreau, the tragic widow of a fictional French businessman, and her 2 orphaned stepchildren. A touching story that explained why the kids didn't resemble Vincent all that much. During all that time, my kids believed I had died in the accident. Linda had told them that their father had died trying to save them, that he was a hero. What a bitter irony. The dead hero was living like a homeless man just a few miles away. From that discovery on, my mission changed completely. It was no longer just about understanding what had happened, it was about justice. I started gathering evidence systematically. I photographed Vincent's suspicious meetings. I recorded conversations when possible. No one suspects a drunk homeless man has a hidden phone. I collected documents from the trash, wrote down license plates, meeting times. I found out that Vincent was under investigation by Interpol for money laundering and arms trafficking. There was an international warrant out for him under the name of Victor Moreau, but he had subtly changed it to Vincent when he came to the United States. The most revealing moment came when I was hiding behind a shipping container at the port of Portland and overheard a conversation between Vincent and his associates about a large shipment of sports equipment coming in from Eastern Europe. Equipment that, based on the technical specs they discussed, clearly had nothing to do with any legal sport. But who would believe me? I was Bobby Mitchell, the drunk homeless guy who had lost his mind after losing his family. If I showed up at a police station with this story, they'd think I was a raving lunatic. I needed a better plan. That's when my health began to deteriorate rapidly. Years of alcohol abuse and life on the streets had taken their toll. Constant abdominal pain, yellowing skin, extreme weakness. You don't need to be a doctor to know your liver is failing. In December 2023, I collapsed on the street and was taken to Portland General Hospital. The diagnosis was advanced cirrhosis. The doctor was blunt. "Mr. Mitchell, I'm sorry to say this, but you have at most a few weeks. The damage is irreversible." Paradoxically, that news brought me a strange sense of relief. Finally, the suffering would end. But before that, I would make sure the truth came out. That's when I met Rebecca Pine. Rebecca was a 45-year-old nurse, divorced, mother to a teenage daughter. Unlike the other hospital staff who treated me with pity or disgust, Rebecca treated me with dignity. She talked to me, asked about my life, listened to my stories without judgment. "Bobby," she said one afternoon while adjusting my IV, "you don't seem like the other patients I see here. There's something in your eyes, a sharpness that doesn't match your current situation." Nurse Rebecca,
I need to tell you something. It might sound like the delirium of a dying man, but I swear it's true." And so I told her everything. The whole story, from the fake accident to the evidence I had gathered on Vincent. I showed her the photos I had taken, the documents I had saved, the recordings I had made. Rebecca was shocked, but she didn't doubt me. "Bobby, this is unbelievable. Why haven't you gone to the police? Who would believe a drunk homeless man accusing a respectable family? But now, with you as a witness, with the evidence organized, maybe there's a chance." Rebecca agreed to help me. She organized all the evidence, scanned documents, transcribed recordings. Together, we prepared a complete investigative package. "Bobby," I told her on my last night of lucidity, "if I die, and I will, promise me you'll take this to the authorities. My kids deserve to know the truth about who their father really is, and Vincent Moreau needs to pay for everything he's done." "I promise, Bobby. You have my word." I died the next morning, carrying with me the hope that even in death, I could bring justice to my family. 3 days after my death, Rebecca Pine kept her promise. She had spent those days meticulously organizing all the evidence I had collected over the months, photos in chronological order, scanned documents, transcribed recordings, a detailed map of Vincent Moreau's suspicious activities. It was a complete dossier that any experienced investigator would recognize as serious work. Rebecca didn't go to the local police. She went directly to the FBI office in Portland, located in the federal building on SW 3rd Avenue. She asked to speak with someone specialized in international crimes. "My name is Rebecca Pine. I'm a nurse at Portland General Hospital. A patient of mine, who passed away 3 days ago, left me evidence of an international criminal organization operating here in Portland. I know this might sound strange, but I ask you to review this material." Agent Martinez was used to people bringing in conspiracy theories and evidence of all sorts, but something about Rebecca's serious and professional demeanor made her agree to take a look. What she saw left her impressed. "Where did this information come from?" Martinez asked, flipping through the carefully organized documents. "A man named Robert Mitchell. He lived on the streets for 5 years after supposedly losing his family in an accident. But he discovered that his wife and kids were alive, living under new identities with an international criminal." Agent Martinez remained silent for several minutes, studying the evidence. The photos were consistent, the documents appeared authentic, and there were details that only someone with close access could have obtained. "Miss Pine, I'm forwarding this to our International Crimes Division. If this information checks out, we're looking at a major operation." Meanwhile, at the West Hills mansion, the Moreau family carried on with their normal routine, completely unaware of what was about to happen. Vincent was in his home office, handling business over the phone. "Yes, the shipment arrives next week," he said in French to someone on the other end. "Make sure the documentation is flawless." Linda was in the kitchen preparing dinner, planning weekend activities. Tyler was doing homework in the living room, while Sophie was watching TV in her room. A perfectly normal family, it seemed. The FBI's investigation moved surprisingly fast. The evidence I had collected provided specific starting points for verification. Within 48 hours, they confirmed that Vincent Moreau was in fact Victor Moreau, wanted by Interpol. His companies were being used to launder money from arms trafficking and international smuggling. But the most shocking revelation came when they investigated the story of Lisa Moreau. Through forensic document analysis and cross-referencing records, they discovered that Linda Mitchell had faked her own death and abducted her own children. The morning of March 15, 2024, exactly 2 months after my death,
the FBI executed simultaneous search and seizure warrants at Vincent's mansion and offices. Vincent was having breakfast when federal agents knocked on the door. "Vincent Morrow, you are under arrest for international arms trafficking, money laundering, and violation of federal sanctions." Linda was at the gym when the agents found her. "Linda Mitchell, also known as Lisa Morrow, you are under arrest for faking your death, parental kidnapping, and criminal conspiracy." The shock was total. Vincent tried to deny everything, claiming it was a misunderstanding. Linda went into full panic, screaming that she hadn't done anything wrong. But the most shocked of all were Tyler and Sophie. When the agents explained the situation, the children couldn't grasp it. "Our dad died in an accident 5 years ago," Tyler said, confused. "Our mom told us he died trying to save us." "Your father didn't die in that accident," Agent Martinez explained gently. "The accident was staged. Your real father spent the last 5 years searching for you." Sophie started crying. "But where is he now? Can we see him?" That's when Agent Martinez had to deliver the cruelest news. "I'm so sorry, but your father died 2 months ago. He was very ill, but he's the one who gathered all the evidence that led us to you. Even in his final days, he never stopped looking for his family." Linda reacted with complete denial. "He was dead. They all died in the accident. I saw the car sink." But when confronted with the evidence, she completely broke down. "You don't understand," she screamed at the agents. "He could never give us the life Vincent did. He was just a mechanic. My kids deserve better than that." Vincent remained silent, demanding a lawyer. Subsequent investigations revealed the full extent of the criminal operation. Vincent was involved in an international network trafficking weapons from the Balkans to South American cartels, using Portland as a distribution hub. The money was laundered through his legitimate import companies. But to Tyler and Sophie, none of that mattered as much as the devastating realization that they had lost 5 years with their real father, who died before ever getting the chance to hold them again. Rebecca Pine was instrumental throughout the entire process. She served as the bridge between the authorities and the children, helping them understand what had happened. "Your father made me promise that I would make sure you knew the truth," she told them. "He said you were the most important thing in the world to him." The final revelation came when authorities found, among my belongings at the hospital, a letter I had written to my children. Tyler and Sophie, if you're reading this, it means I finally managed to bring the truth to light. I want you to know that every day of the last 5 years, even in the darkest moments living on the streets, I never stopped loving you. I never stopped looking for you, and even though I can't hold you now, I hope you'll one day understand that everything I did was out of love. Be happy, be kind, and remember that your father never abandoned you."
6 months after the events that changed everything, justice had taken its course. Vincent Morrow was sentenced to 25 years in federal prison for international arms trafficking, money laundering, and criminal conspiracy. Authorities discovered that his criminal network moved over $50 million annually. He was extradited to France, where he faced additional charges for similar crimes in Europe. Linda Mitchell received a 12-year sentence for faking her death, parental kidnapping, insurance fraud, and conspiracy. During the trial, she tried to argue that she had done it all for the good of the children, but the judge was firm. "Mrs. Mitchell, you deprived your children of the right to know and love their biological father during crucial years of their lives. There is no justification for such selfishness." Tyler and Sophie were placed under temporary custody of social services, but Rebecca Pine, who had developed a strong bond with them throughout the ordeal, decided to apply to become their legal guardian. "I made a promise to their father," she told the judge during the custody hearing. "I promised I would make sure they knew the truth. Now I want to make sure they have a good and stable life." The guardianship process took 3 months, but was approved. Rebecca sold her small house and bought a larger one using part of the money recovered from Vincent's accounts, money that legally belonged to the victims of his crimes, including my children. Tyler, now 16, struggled to process everything that had happened. He had spent 5 years believing his father was a dead hero, only to learn that his father had been alive, searching for them, and had died before they could reunite. Therapy helped, but the wounds ran deep. Sophie, 14, handled the situation better. She created a photo album with all the memories she had of her real father, mixed with the evidence I had collected. A strange but touching way of rebuilding our relationship. Rebecca took the children to visit my grave at Portland Memorial Cemetery regularly. The tombstone had been paid for with money recovered from Vincent's criminal assets. The inscription read, "Robert Bobby Mitchell, a devoted father who never gave up." "He was always looking for you," Rebecca told the kids during one of those visits. "Even when everyone thought he had given up on life, he was still looking." The story gained national attention when it was picked up by the media. Documentarians became interested in the case, and investigative journalists wrote articles about how a seemingly broken man had exposed an international criminal network. But for Tyler and Sophie, it was simply the tragic story of a father they lost twice. A year later, Tyler started working part-time at a mechanic shop, following in his father's footsteps. "I want to learn what he knew," he told Rebecca. "I want to understand who he really was." Sophie decided she wanted to become a nurse, inspired by Rebecca. "I want to help people the way Rebecca helped Daddy," she said. Rebecca set up an education fund for the kids using the recovered money, ensuring they'd be able to attend college when the time came. In a way, it was the life I had always dreamed of giving them, but never could. And sometimes, on quiet evenings, when Tyler fixed something broken around the house, or when Sophie cared for an injured animal she had found, Rebecca would smile and whisper, "Your father would be proud." Justice had been served. My children knew the truth. And even in death, I had managed to protect them and give them a better future. Sometimes, the sweetest revenge is simply the truth.